People will ask, who are contemplating getting into reloading, what's involved and how much is this going to cost me? Okay, let me tell you up front, this is the tool world. You can spend a few $100s, or you could spend $1,200, you can spend $2,000, $4,000. It's the tool world. You got Harbor Freight, Sears and Roebuck Craftsman, you've got Snap-on, you've got the absolute gamut. Let me go over with you just some of the basic things that you need to have, and you can flesh out whatever you want. And this is by no means an exhaustive demonstration. It's just a very Dick and Jane overview, so to speak. So to get reloading, you have to have some form of a press. This is called a single stage press. Now it happens to be made by a company by the name of Forster, and it's referred to as a coaxial press. This one, on the other hand, is called a turret press. Turret presses are made by lots of different brands, and they hold a number of different dies. This one by Redding, called the T7, has 7 stations. Lyman makes an All-American 8. This older one down here by Hollywood Gun Shop, place doesn't exist anymore, has a lot more stations. So there's a lot of tools out there. So when you go to a reloading shop or a gun shop, whoever's selling the reloading tools, people come to me, first thing I ask them is, okay, tell me what guns you want to shoot and what kind of volume are you going to be going through every single month? Because part of this is about precision, part of it's about volume, and I tailor what I'm doing to the specific needs of the individual. So for example, if you're taking the wife and the kids out on the weekend and you're blowing through thousands of rounds of 9 and 223, that's a completely different deal than some guy who's doing long-range precision shooting. He's got a 6.5 Creed or a 338 Lapua if you prefer, and he's shooting targets at 1,000+ yards. Okay, that's a completely different animal. But in general, you need some kind of a press, and you need dies, because in the reloading process, when you shot your gun, the case was ejected from it, it puffed up to the size of the chamber. We need to clean that. We'll get back to cleaning in just a little bit. And then when you put it in your first die, the sizing die, it squeezes it back down, and then there's a pin sticking out the bottom that knocks out the old primer. On a straight wall casing like 9, 40, 45, whatever, the second step is you flare the mouth of the casing. So you have a flaring die, would be the second die in your die set. Then you are going to seat the bullet. You put a new bullet on top and you push it, you press it into the casing. That's called bullet seating. And then maybe you're going to crimp. Sometimes you crimp, sometimes you don't. It's application specific, and we'll talk about that later on. However, in the meanwhile, you also need to have a mechanism or a means of dispensing gunpowder. You need to have a way of weighing your gunpowder, because what you're doing is you are simply following a recipe. There is absolutely no guesswork in anything that we're doing here. So let's say that we were going to load, well, I just happened to open up to 308 Winchester. So if you're going to load a 180 grain bullet, we're simply looking in the book, and there's a list of gunpowders that could be used, and across it tells us how much it can be used, and then it's going to tell us how far down to press that into the casing, because it's got to feed up through the magazine and chamber. So you've got a press, you've got dies, you have a way of dispensing the gunpowder, and then you got to have something very simple in order to put the gunpowder into the casing. And then you've got, of course, your seating, but you have to weigh that powder charge. Now there are electronic tools. For example, Lyman makes them, RCBS makes them, Frankfurt Arsenal makes them. It's an electronic dispenser scale combination. So if you're loading 308 and I need 44.3 grains of gunpowder, 44.3, hit the button and it dispenses it for me. It's going to speed you up quite a bit. So if, for example, you are using a single stage press and you are using a manual powder dispenser and a balanced scale, which is the traditional excellent precision way to do it, it's also going to be, by the way, probably the slowest. Now when you're brand new, it's going to take you an hour to make one. But once you get into a rhythm and you kind of understand what you're doing, you can easily, working at a very comfortable pace, make 50 in an hour. If you have a turret press where you set up your dies and you leave them set up and you're simply going to turn the head for every step that you're doing, and you use that in conjunction with an electronic powder dispenser scale combination tool that has what they call an auto repeat function to it. So you dump your powder into the casing, you set the pan back down, and the thing starts dispensing your next powder charge. You seat the bullet, you put that one down, you grab the next case, your powder charge is waiting for you. So you can move really pretty quickly. Again, at a very comfortable pace, you can knock out about 150 rounds per hour. You also need some calipers. So when you seat that bullet, you've got to be able to measure to get to the overall length that the book told you is how far you need to press that into the casing. You need a bullet puller. You're gonna make mistakes when you're brand new, no big deal. Everybody does. I still use these things 50 bazillion rounds later. It's a kinetic bullet puller. You put a live cartridge in here, you hit it on the floor, it's not gonna blow up, it doesn't go bang. All it's gonna do is the bullet comes out, the powder will be in here, you pull out the prime casing, and you reuse everything. Nothing goes to waste. That's the beauty, is you just start over, no big deal. You need a simple load block. So as you're doing this, you gotta have something to put these things in as you're doing what you're doing. If you have roughly 4 feet of space, that's great. A lot of people have less. Lee makes a tripod where you can mount their press to the top of the tripod. It's got a little shelf down below, and you can have everything there. So people who live in like a studio apartment, you get that thing out, you load your ammo, and then you put it back in the corner and just take it out as needed. So if you are gonna make more precision type ammunition, and it's not gonna be real high volume, a single stage is a great way to go. If you want to pick up the pace a little bit, maybe make 150 of very high quality, excellent ammunition, a turret press is going to be a much more convenient way for you to go. If you are doing high volume, your wife and kids and you're all going out on the weekend and you are blowing through thousands of rounds in a very short period of time, 50 rounds in an hour on a single stage press, it's going to kill you. You just can't move that slow. You've got to move faster. So in that instance, there is what is called a progressive machine. Now this guy right here, that's from Dillon. It's an older press. That one's about 20 years old. It's a 650, and it's what they call an auto-indexing press. So every time you pull the handle, it rotates the cartridge to the next station. So all you do is you're putting a bullet on top, you pull the handle. And working at a very comfortable pace, I can make 400 rounds in an hour. Now, Dillon says their load rate with the new one, it's called the 750. It's basically the same thing with a few changes. You can make, their load rate, I think they advertise is about 800 rounds an hour. Brother, you gotta be flying to make 800 rounds in an hour. And I'm gonna tell you, do not ever be in a hurry when you're making ammunition. If anything, slow down. Fast is slow and slow is fast. There's nothing worse than getting to the range and having problems with your ammunition. You're far better off with 50 cartridges that are absolutely perfect and flawless than 500 that are kind of and you're having to struggle with stuff, and it's not fun. Slow down. You can come by RELOADoc. I will help you with your selection of what's appropriate for you, for what you're doing, for the volume that you're doing, or any gun shop or whatever where people are selling this stuff. Sometimes, traditionally, there's only about 5% of the people who shoot that make their own ammunition. So unfortunately, there's not as many knowledgeable people out there as we would really like to see. So let's increase our numbers with that. You get yourself started making ammunition, and then we'll all kind of spread the wealth of knowledge with everybody else that's shooting. But you go out, you shoot, you pick up your empty casings, do not leave that on the ground. That gold is worth a lot of money. You can reload the same casing many times, and that's where a lot of the reloading savings comes from. Now there's vibratory tumbling that uses walnut and corncob media. There's rotary tumblers that use a liquid solution of soap of some sort with metal pins. There's sonic cleaning, there's other methods. What method you choose to clean your brass is not the important thing. What is the important thing is that you are doing something to clean your casings before you reload them. It's the outside we're concerned with. The inside of the casing, you see all that black stuff, that carbon that's in there, that just does not matter. It does not decrease case capacity. It does not affect the performance of the cartridge. It is not a safety issue whatsoever. What is important is that you make sure the flash hole is clear when you put that new primer in there. In other videos I talk about case prep. There's a million videos on YouTube that will get into more details about that kind of thing. But when you come by this shop, that's the whole point of what I do, is I don't like to do a lot of generic overview type videos, because when somebody comes in, I talk to them. What are the guns you're shooting? Who's shooting it? What are the distances? You know what I mean? I tailor what I'm doing to the person who comes through the door. That way I know you're gonna go home, you're gonna be successful. But in general, I will tell you, if you are brand new, there's a lot of people say, well, man, I just want to bang out 1,000 rounds in an hour so I can go out and blow through a ton of stuff. Brother, you are cheating yourself out of a ton of information and education. If you go straight to something like that and you have no mechanical background, you're just not mechanically inclined, but you want to hurry up. You want to get this done. You want to go out and shoot. You're not interested in making reloading a hobby. You're inviting a lot of trouble if you do not understand each step in the process, every step of the way. Something goes sideways on a progressive machine, you are totally lost. You have no idea where to go, what to look for, and now you're making phone calls. You're on the phone with Dylan for 5 hours trying to figure out what the problem is. It's just, believe me, I've been at this too long, and I've seen so much stuff where a guy who is brand new, if he starts with a single stage press or even a turret press, and you learn the Dick and Jane, you learn the basics of what to do, how to do it, and then you go to a progressive machine, you are 50 million miles ahead of the guy who jumped right into that with no concept of what he was doing. But I watched a YouTube video and I've got the book and I can read that. That's cool. If you're that kind of person and you can do that and it works for you, God bless you. But I can tell you right now, you're cheating yourself out of a lot of valuable information if you don't start with Dick and Jane. Happy trails.